Nature show is going offshore today. We're not going very far offshore, but still offshore. This is a shallow bay that's very near the Atlantic Ocean, which is on the other side of those islands. So it gets a lot of tide flowing in and out. And what we're out here to look at is this thing, which is part of an old dock that used to come out here into the bay. And to us, it just looks like a piece of muddy old wood. But this is home to a huge variety of really cool living things. One of the most common animals living just below the water on a post like this is the barnacle. There's one. It doesn't look like much, but you can see it in there, just barely moving. Its eyes aren't very good, but it can sense my shadow here, so I'll hold still. Look, there it is. Wow. I wonder why it has all those fancy spots, like barnacle bling. It's pulling in food from the passing water. There's a bigger barnacle story than you might imagine. They look a lot like shellfish, like these mussels. They also live in shells and open up to siphon in food from the moving tide. And then they get rid of the parts that aren't edible. But barnacles are not related to shellfish at all. They're members of the arthropod phylum, and so they're related to crabs and even to spiders. How can this be? Crabs and spiders are very mobile. Okay, we'll use this hermit crab here to demonstrate. He's pulling himself almost out of his shell, so we'll just grab him and turn him upside down on top of the barnacle. If this crab used its legs to sweep water into its mouth like this, and had hardly any eyes, well, then he'd be living like a barnacle. Sorry, fella. Here's your eyes back. You go on about your mobile business. Okay, here's another visual aid. This one is an artistic one. Let's imagine we can look into its shell. I'll draw in a stomach, and a mouth, and an intestine. But you get the idea. It's laying on its back in that shell, sweeping tasty bits into its mouth, with its appendages, which would be called legs if it were right side up and were a crab. Barnacles also happen to be biology celebrities, because one of the greatest scientists ever, Charles Darwin, spent 8 years studying barnacles from 1846 to 1854. That's a long time. But with more than 1,000 different species of barnacles in the world and their unusual ways of living, he had his work cut out for him. Okay, get serious. Darwin did not have chartreuse snorkeling goggles in 1846. He did his work in an office, dissecting lots of specimens in jars that he collected and that people sent to him. Science is hard work. We're going back offshore. Down here, food is always flowing with the tides and currents, so it's possible to live very differently than most land animals. Many underwater creatures, like these tubularia hydroids and this feather duster worm, just don't fit our idea of what animals should look like. These look more like flowers to me. Here, they don't have to chase anything or migrate. They just have to find a way to hold tight and filter dinner from the water as it passes by. The shallow, sunny water of these tidal bays is loaded with food. Anemones wave sticky tentacles. And this sea pork, which is really a whole colony of animals working together to siphon, well, they're just bizarre. And now look at this. This is one of my favorite animals. It's one of a lot of people's favorite animals, and it's really evolved to hang on in a world of current. A seahorse is a fish, but it's built for hanging on with a very strong tail. It's expert at wrapping this tail around stable things. Its fins look like ears to me, and it uses them for steering and can only swim short distances with them. It's hanging on in the seaweed while it searches for the tiny shrimp that are its favorite food. Whoa, speaking of weird fish, a puffer. I wish we could follow him, but we've come to the end of the show. But don't worry, we'll bring him back in another one. We still have a lot of little nature to look at along the watery shore.